All right, I think everybody's in, and it is 9:01. We hit go about 30 seconds too late. So we value your time and let's get started. Really excited for today. So this is our week 7 of our AI for Business Mastery series that we've been hosting and putting on for all of you. And I've been hearing feedback that this has been really valuable in we share how you can work AI into your life, into your business, kind of broadly, but this 8-week series has gotten really focused on individual use cases, and I think that's been so helpful for so many of us, included in that. And it also expands your mind too. Like, I didn't think about using AI this way in my business or in my life, and now I see all the possibilities too when we get really focused. We also have loved the interaction. So just like every week, please post your questions in the chat and we'll pull you guys off of mute too if it's something that could benefit the group. We love having you all. Oh my gosh, do I see Pam in the room with Linda Burns there? Hey, girl. This is so exciting. So excited to see you on the call. Today, week 7 is all about social media and content creation, which is huge in business. In fact, it's a topic that so many share. We've got business coaches that coach on content creation, how to leverage, how to make connections with your clients. But that in and of itself has become so noisy. And so I'm really excited to pick the brain of Eric today on how we can really use our AI to leverage social media in the right way and really differentiate ourselves. So welcome all in the call. Eric, I'm super excited
Morning.
for this topic today.
Morning. Social media. Social media. I've seen a lot of you on social media lately. Good morning to you. So we do want to talk some tactics. We want to talk some strategies. We want to dig into Satori, SparkPad, and a few of the tools. But as always, I thought we'd start off with just a little bit of, making sure we set the stage. And so Danielle and I talked about some things that we want to make sure we talk about today. So to keep me straight, Danielle's got some questions that she's going to pose to make sure that we dig into the root of it.
Yeah.
Because again, as a part of our mission here with Huzi, it's not to teach people how to create more noise, on the internet, just take up more space without providing value. And so let's start off, Danielle, with just kind of getting to the root of some of these real issues that's happening, just not in just social media. Let's also make sure we're understanding social media in the frame of marketing, right?
In the
Marketing.
frame of marketing and business, yeah, and in coaching agents over the last number of years too, and with the big rise of social media, what I'm finding is that we've started just kind of copying people. We know that social media is super important, but we don't understand why or really how to do it. And because we lack time, which now AI can help us with, because we lack time, we end up just copying and copying what the next person is doing. So, Eric, why do you think most people completely miss the mark when it comes to social media?
Mhm. So you hit something there that's true. Like we lack the time, right? But I actually don't think that's the culprit, right? Because we're finding time to post. I actually think the bigger culprit is not the time, is that we lack what the value is. Like it's not volume isn't the issue, it's value that's the issue for most people. And so, like, stepping back and realizing, oh, what is the value that I can bring? What are the 3 problems that my consumer has today? Like digging underneath the hood is part of what I think that doesn't get done because we just start in emotion. Like we start at step number 3, maybe, instead of
Mhm.
step number 1. So I don't know, maybe we can start off with, I would love, if we just get a little interactive and if people are super clear on this, this will take you 10 seconds. But if not, you'll hear what I'm talking about with this first issue, volume over value. So if you guys don't mind playing along with me for a second, if you have something to write down with, if you can write down what you think, whoever you're serving, if you're in real estate or marketing or lending or selling cars here, can you write down the 3 biggest problems that your consumer has? Not in general, but today, like today. Because again, social media algorithms aren't showing what isn't relevant today. They don't always talk about what's like today. So if we can, I take a few seconds and write down what those 3 things are. And that would be clear. And the faster it takes you, the more clear you are. And if you stumble around this, then here's something that we'll think about to start off the conversation. So what are the three biggest problems your clients have today?
Mm. Yeah, and I would love if you guys are willing to share too, post those in the
Yeah.
chat, share with each other. Many of us have similar clientele, right? And probably shared pain points. So share those with the group. That framing is super helpful. I love what you said too, that um, we're we're posting in volume and missing the value. I think about social media over the last 5, even 10 years now, and we would always train that consistency is key, right? That just staying consistent because the goal was to be top of mind. But that's not really where the value is. Everybody's top of mind now. Everyone's on social media. So,
But the
right?
good thing, okay, I will say yes, but consistency is rare. So being consistent will automatically put you in a different class than most of your competitors, to be perfectly frank. So if you can be consistent on top of having value, then you're going to be undeniable. But it's the combination, it's not just consistent. So as an example, most people on social media are chasing visibility. Like I want to get my name out there. I want my name out there. Well, having your name out there doesn't pay the bills, right? Having a connection does, building trust at scale does, but not being visible. And there's definitely there's difference between those two things. Um, Most consumers, I read some statistics preparing for this class, 70% of consumers make a brand choice now based on the personal connection to the brand. Okay. And so it's presence, over polish
Mm,
sort of idea, right? And yeah, we can have all the fancy hooks and editing and we can talk how to create images and those sorts of things. But at the end of the day, using AI to make it sound more like AI isn't the idea. It's to flesh out the human part of you, solving those three problems in a very high trust, valuable way on a consistent basis is what most people just don't do on social media, right?
mhm.
Now, first of all, we have not done until just now a great job with our personal brand on social media. Just to put that out there. Now we're starting this. Personally, I have done some social media. Had quite a few followers on different accounts, so I understand the game. And I'll just be perfectly honest. Social media to me has become like this. Uh, Feels so commoditized. It feels like there has to be this formula of hook, problem, solution, call to action sort of formula. And I think that you can break free of that and win. Leaders don't follow trends, they set them. And we talk about all the trends on social media, and creating your own trend is what will pierce through the noise instead of just following the trends. And I understand why that's, easy to do. You know, do some arbitrage, take a video that's going viral, put it in the opening of your video, and then cut to you falling down on the kitchen floor and talk about your listing, right? I understand the temptation of that. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, nor am I judging. However, that's so forgettable, and that is getting visibility, but it's not being memorable, right? It's
Mm,
it's 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 being visible without establishing trust at scale, right? So just be careful about the actions can be perceived to be true, and we all know people on social media, Danielle, especially in the real estate space, that have 5, 10, 20,000 followers, but 95% of them are other realtors, mortgage lenders, title people saying, great video, I love your video, but it's not home buyers and sellers, as an example, right? So be very careful about visibility over value.
You say that all the time, that going viral isn't the goal, it's being unforgettable. And I get it now. I get it. You're right. Because you could have a viral post, but when my clients need to go buy a home or sell a home, is it that viral post, right? That they saw with me trembling
Absolutely.
down the stairs? Or is it me being unforgettable? They see me as the resource, somebody they want me guiding them through and answering their problems. Like for instance, okay, so Breezy shared in the chat here. I love this. Her clients, so depleted, these are concerns of her clients, depleted
Yeah.
retirement assets due to stock market losses. Yeah. Didn't save enough for retirement, credit card debt with massive interest rates. Okay. So Breezy, you could have a viral post of you falling down the stairs on social, right? But if those are your clients' number one concerns, they're going to be looking for that solution. They're going to be looking for that professional that's memorable for those reasons, because that's what they need the help with. Those are their pain points. Those are
So
great.
if you guys want to write this down, that list here spawned this idea. You might want to write this down because I don't have a slide or anything for it. But there's really three categories of posts that really kill it, no matter what the trends having to be going on in today's world. And the first one is what's called the relatable truth. And the relatable truth, like I heard a lot of truth in that list, Breezy. And those are truths. That is either a truth that you have personally or a truth that you have that's very close to you. It's not a truth that you've just observed in general or just read about or something that's too like, I'm going to preach at you about this truth. It's internalized, personalized, relatable because you're sharing the experience you have of the truth, not just talking about the truth as it's this third party thing. I want to be really clear about what that means. So a relatable truth is one of the posts that just generally just pierces through the noise. Number two here, obviously, is a pattern interrupt, but that's just not in a hook. A pattern interrupt is more like, please, can you by show of hands or show me who's read the Challenger sale? You know, I've heard you, maybe you heard me talk about it. And if you haven't, absolutely 100%. Okay, some people raising their hands here. That to me is one of the best book, if not the best sort of sales book. And at the core of it, what it really does, just to refresh your memory here, is it really challenges the assumption that people buy from others who they know, like, and trust. That is the way that it has been done. And you can say that you can say that because that feels good, but don't we all know people that knew, liked, and trust us, but bought from somebody else because it was more convenient, or they just happened to be in the way, right? Or we know people we know, like, and trust, but we chose brand B just because they have the cheaper price, right? Or whatever, more convenient for us to buy from them. So it is really a different way of thinking, that the Challenger sale model doesn't get them to agree or disagree with you. It gets them to pause and say, wow, I never thought about it like that before. Tell me more, right? If you can elicit that reaction out of your social media post, you're going to have a winner. And by a winner, I don't mean it's 100,000 views. It might be 100 views, but 80 of those 100 now have elevated you in their perception of who you are at scale for trust. And so that's and number three. So that's pattern interrupt. Number three is like a save for later. Some item value that they save for later because there has content in there of statistics, DIY, step by step, something that I want to use as a resource for later that's worth me saving, and a bonus point if it's worth me sharing to somebody else in a DM. Right? So those three things, just to focus on the types of posts, is a relatable truth, a pattern interrupt, and a save me for later post.
So that's interesting, because you know what is not in that list are current market stats or things like that you can find pretty much anywhere. And I think that's a base level that you would expect that at the very least, the professional would have that understanding of statistics. But now with AI, and obviously anybody can Google anything, those stats are not, you don't need them from your realtor posted.
No, you don't. But look, I'm gonna actually open the board here, and I got an example of, in fact, even on stats, of somebody that did stats. But I like the opening hook. I found her on YouTube because I was looking at some recent videos that would be a good example of either to-dos or not to-dos to share today. So I'm just gonna open up this board real quick here. Okay, can you see this board?
Yeah.
Okay, so let me just play the opening of this. And so you can see the kind of hook. Now, whether or not you like her personality or her style or whatever, but just listen to the framing of the hook here. Let's see here.
There's a new and unusual sign of market weakness that is taking place. We're going to talk about that today. Plus, there is also another stat that looks similar to 2008. So, of course, we got to take a look at what's going on there. Plus, sellers seem to be losing confidence. So let's get into it.
Okay, did you hear what happened there?
Yeah.
So there was an emotion, a heavy emotion. Like if you're talking real estate statistics and you tie it to 2008, anybody that's kind of been around like knows, oh, that sounds serious. Let me lean in. Right. And so the framing of it can be done in such a way. So what I did, just to show you again, now we're talking about using AI and using Satori specifically, is I really wanted to understand, well, let's break this down, this opening, and understand why it's effective. And so, Satori did a nice job of kind of breaking this down. And now I want to convert that from what she did into what I can use now. So not just good enough to learn, but let's learn like this was good. And by the way, this was 3 weeks old, this video, and I think it had about 13,000 or 14,000 views. So for real estate, market statistics with a couple, weeks old to have, 10,000 plus views is good. As
Oh
far as
man.
goes, right? So, and it has to do a lot with her thumbnail, if you saw what that was like, and it has to do a lot with, let me actually, oh yeah, that thumbnail. That thumbnail had like 2008. Remember the graphic going down, and the opening, and so that's going to drive a lot of the views. So if you can see here today, what we talked about, and I did a couple iterations. Let me this last one here. Oh yeah, like this one. Hey, Portland real estate market is throwing some curveballs this April, and if you're in the loop or just curious, here's the scoop that you need. Okay. Now, March saw a 10% increase in new listings year over year. More homes means more choices, but what's the real story here? Okay, you can see like that kind of scripting is the type of scripting that is really hard to do. Just sit down and create the script or tell the ChatGPT or tell SparkPad, but to go find an example of something that you believe to be effective, that resonates with you, that's proven to be effective because you can see some likes, views, or shares, and then you can convert that into the style for you and get it done in just a few minutes. This is how I would like if you're going to talk about statistics, really, really talk about the framing.
And this right here probably answers my initial question, which is how are so many missing the mark when it comes to social media? And it's because if we hear that we should share market statistics and we're given those, which, fantastic too, like a lot of our business partners provide those and dish those up to us. So the lift is really light, but we're missing the mark in only sharing it and not framing it appropriately and speaking to like why this matters and what that means and how you assess this and how it could also impact your clients. So it's just that extra step. And now look, with AI, we can learn from the best and we can take those tactics and apply it to our foundational plan, which is share the statistics with my audience, but how do I make this impactful?
Yeah, so if I were to read this just out loud here, like the median sales price for single family homes hit $566,000 in Q1 2025. That's up 10.3%. So why aren't prices dropping? Well, demand is the name of the game. Homes are selling, right? It's a pretty compelling, narrative. And all I had to do again was find an example of one that I thought was compelling, have Satori help me rewrite it to my marketplace. And by the way, the prompt that I used was go online. Remember, this is, we're connected to the internet. Go online, find the most recent statistics, and then convert that into the script using this framework for me. So all in one sort of prompt, Huzi went out, found the recent statistics that are represented here in the script and came back. So these aren't just placeholders. These were found and cited, inside of this chat. So a good way to like reframe. If you believe that save me for later is being a market statistic, like that's something you want to be known for, do that, but do it in a way that's memorable, that builds trust and has a little bit of entertainment to it. So
Yeah, I love that. So Eric, if we only had 1 hour a week to then devote to our social time blocking is key, right? But if we only had 1 hour a week, how would we use that? How would we leverage AI to get the most out of that hour?
wow, an hour a week? Okay. Well, first of all, I would suggest that during the week, people start a little bank, a content bank. And in that content, maybe it's notes in your phone, maybe it's a thread in your SparkPad, maybe it's on one of your boards just in the notes, but somewhere that you keep these notes for the week. And these notes are going to be observations, objections, testimonials you receive. What are some other things that I wrote down here? Bank here. Oh, stories that you encountered, and make notes of that just throughout the week, because that will create your social media content bank that you can then refer to for that hour to create content for. Instead of just sitting down for, okay, I got to create some content now. What am I
Right.
going to do? Right? Refer back to your notes from the week and those things that you just noted. Oh, this was a great question that my client asked. That would be a piece of content. Seeing something, when you're either viewing homes that stood out to you, that would be a piece of content. You know what? Now let's talk about save for later, or a pattern interrupt, especially with the image generation, is going to be like before and afters, right? So for instance, if I'm a real estate agent, before and after post. So if you go and tour homes, take a picture of a kitchen, be like, oh man, I toured all of the homes, in the Boise area this week. This home really stood out, but the kitchen really lagged. If I was representing a buyer in this house, this is how we turn this kitchen to a dream kitchen, and therefore they would now increase the value of the price by 12%, whatever the stats are, right? And if you're looking for houses that have that hidden sort of quality that most people don't see, I can help you find that, right? And you can do that by going to Satori. Let's actually just do one. Let's do one, Danielle.
This is probably one of the most exciting features that we just released and that Satori can help us with. In fact, I see so many of you guys posting online and sharing your use cases and how you're helping clients kind of visualize what the property could look like if they were to take certain actions, if this were to be their
Yeah,
next home. I love
I hope
that.
my feed is just flooded, with people using before and afters and reimagining spaces and all that, because these posts always kill it. Providing visuals that you can do or help the vision that you can see that nobody else can see is really compelling. So again, what I'm doing here is just dragging and dropping onto the canvas. And again, for those of you who haven't played with this yet or been in my classes, you can edit a photo two ways. One by clicking the magic wand at the top and entering your prompts, or you can connect it to your chat and do the editing inside of your chat either way. The reason why you use if you're just curious why you might use one or the other, is if you just want to make a simple edit and you don't need to connect to a chat. Just simply do here one prompt, make your edit, get out of here and go. We added a new download feature button here. So the images you can download quickly. And yes, they are high resolution, and we verified that as well, which is pretty cool. So like this one, edit this. Well, I mean, obviously it's got to be white cabinets for this sort of kitchen, right? To have now, I am using these little short little prompts that I know that we can all improve on. So it's just for the class. But the other reason why I kind of do these at the class, Danielle, is just kind of show that even if you just use a short, kind of broken, not great prompt, you can still get decent results and responses here. So it did adhere to the prompts. It didn't make any other changes. Like I don't see it rearranged or added a window, or something else to the image or added light fixtures that aren't there. So it looks like the cabinets are all in the same order. So this is a nice generation. So, in one prompt with a very broken prompt, you can say, here's a before and after this. I can help you reimagine, right? So doing before and afters are going to be really, really powerful.
And all of our members that are on the call right now too, they're used to, we talk about iterating often, right? And give feedback to your AI. So when you talk about this being a really basic kind of, low level prompt with not a whole lot of guardrails and stuff. The alternative to that would be, hey, I want to add white cabinets. I want to upgrade this to white cabinets. Don't change anything else and kind of create some parameters and be more specific. So
Yeah.
that,
Yeah. So
look
then
at
here,
that.
even it added even some. I said added that looks typical for Oregon. That was my prompt on this one, and so before and after, so you can make a really quick edit here too. Let's actually, while we're in here, just talking about image generation, on your post. Obviously, visuals are super important, and so if you're writing on LinkedIn or writing on Facebook or especially on Instagram, you need to have a really compelling visual. So let's actually do some image generation here, Danielle, since we're talking
This
social
is
media.
awesome. You talk about visuals, and we use Huzi too in building relationships, even with our spouses. Like I could take a photo of something that currently exists and then provide a visual to my husband. This is what I want you to
Yeah, there's
do.
that nefarious
Just to
purpose.
be very
Sure.
clear, this is what I'm looking for.
Yeah, exactly. Christmas, yeah, birthday, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah. As a matter of fact, like you can, like, if you wanted, put a picture of yourself and then put that suit on you or the dress on you or whatever.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
say, this is what I want to look like on our date. Buy this for me. Sure, exactly. All right. So stylistically, don't forget that part of your prompt is going to be asking for the type of style that you want, right? Okay, so let's give an example. Let's say that we're posting something that's kind of going crazy in the marketplace, like let's like tariffs and whatnot. And in order to give the visual, maybe you want to have, I don't know, can I just troll myself here for a minute even? See if I
Oh,
have
that would be fun. Let's do that
see,
with you.
see if I have a picture of myself here. I know I do somewhere, so I'm gonna find a picture of myself. Let's see here. And the reason why I'm doing this is because there's a certain style that I think is kind of fun that I was just playing with yesterday. Oh, I might have to use. Sorry, this is kind of fun because I don't actually have a photo of myself. Okay, so I'm going to use a photo of one of our members because she was asking me for something. So I'm going to put Kayla down here. Okay, and now I'm so sorry, Kayla, but I'm just going to edit your photo. I'll send her this too. So she's okay. So edit this image. Let's think style wise. So I found the style that's kind of fun. It's to be in the style of a sketch. Okay. So my point is that whatever emotion you're trying to elicit out of your post, please don't hesitate to put that in the prompt, the style of whatever you were trying to create. So if you're trying to show like fun, or that's actually a horrible rendering. That's actually a horrible generation. So I'd have to make that a better prompt, to be honest with you.
That's definitely a carnival cartoon sketch, though, which
Yeah.
is exactly what you asked for. So,
Exactly. And so I'm sorry, I'm trying to speed through this. So remember, don't forget that when normally we do this, I would put another AI chat on here and I'd have it generate my prompt and I'd copy and paste over to get official generation. Okay. So, but yes, it is a carnival cartoon sketch. It's funny. It's just so literal. And that was a good example. But let me do this. Let me do like this. So let me make up an example here. Oh, let's say that you're talking about the perils of home buyers, going online and entering the information somewhere and they become a lead and now their phone rings off the hook and, that's ringing a million times, right? That's something you might want to save your clients from. They might not know that they become a lead the minute they enter the information in Zillow, as an example, right? They're going to get 1,300 calls, right? So maybe you want to say something like generate an image of a fish swimming. Okay. And then we can say, let's see here, add words.
don't get hooked.
Don't get hooked. Okay. So what I'm doing here is you can see I did this in sequence to where if I do it all in one, it might not work, right? It could jumble things up or might not be perfect. It might have worked perfectly, but I found sequential adding of things is really really kind of nice. So, again, this might be a visual ad instead of being a home or instead of being a screenshot of Zillow or something like that, something that's a pattern interrupt using a generation of an image with a bold title would be the way that you would set that image, that post.
Mm-hmm. I love this. And going back to when you talked about having a content bank, I think that is if we only have an hour a week to work on content or a couple hours a week to work on content, having that bank and like you said, it being part of your process, like to make a mental note or somewhere of a pain point you made note of in talking with a client or something you heard somebody else discussing, so that when you get to that hour that you've time blocked for, that you're not just rushing to create content really fast or you're looking to copy somebody, that you're going back to that bank and those notes and you're being really intentional. I love that. And I picture having a whole Satori board, Eric, that's specifically for that, where I go and I make a note and it just lives there.
There's no way I would kind of jump into this arena of marketing, not just social media, but of marketing, unless you have that level of clarity. Again, a statistic I'd like people to really understand: by the end of the year, according to McKinsey, which does a lot of research studies, 90% of all internet content, image generated, text, video, is going to be generated by AI by the end of this year. Since the release of ChatGPT, most forums, including Reddit, Facebook, Instagram, or whatnot, has seen at least an 8,000% increase in content.
Wow.
I just want to make sure people heard that. That is staggering in terms of the amount of content that's being flooded because people are automating their messages, and you can't automate humanity. You can automate marketing, but you can't automate personal brand, right? And so just want to be very, very clear about the two that I'm not villainizing anybody that's like just pumping out social media content. I just know as a consumer, put yourself in their shoes. I want a real freaking person solving a real problem today. And that isn't volume, that's value. And so that's the reason why, yes, like I've played with captions. Like we're going to start, just for fun, we're on some of our social media, you're going to see us using AI avatars to deliver messages. Because part of what we're doing is like really understanding where AI should play in marketing or whatnot. We'll be testing that and sharing the results with you. But at the end of the day, your personal brand reigns supreme. And with
Mm.
an 8,000% increase and 90+% of all content being generated by AI, the human beings will win. So I want to be contrarian that way.
So how do these tools like our Satori, or those that are really good at prompting, maybe even Chat GPT, how do they help people think then more clearly and be more creative? Because
All right.
that's the key.
So what I would do, I would take your list of your problems if you have the top three problems. And then you could start, it doesn't matter if you start in SparkPad or whatever. So copy the problem. So my consumer has the problem of having, oh, you can't see
Show
my,
us, yeah,
I'm
show us
just
what you're
like,
doing.
hey, I
We want
started
to we want to
typing and you
see it
guys are
all.
like, wait a minute. Sorry, guys. Having too much credit card debt.
Okay. And Eric, we're on the Huzi model here. So would you leave it for this, or how do you make this decision
Thank you.
on the model? Okay.
Yeah, thank you for asking that. So, that's going to be your personal preference.
Hmm.
I typically start off with a Huzi model. If I want something really, really quick, Gemini is always really quick. Obviously, the DeepSeek gets a little bit deeper in some of the logic, but it takes a little bit longer of a time to respond to me. So, what I was starting to write here is just the power of AI, in my opinion, is the power of iteration. It's not the power of just single generation. It's the power of you going from my basic idea to the finished product. Because software before you guys was the place that you went to get work done. Now with AI, it's the place that you go to start your work. And those are two different things, right? You go to software, you'd have decided what you needed to do, you'd go do the data entry, you'd produce the result, and that's you got the work done in your side of your software. But now the software with AI is where you go to start the process of the work. So the brainstorming process and the iteration. So to me, Danielle, I've found that just getting it out of my head and getting the real world is the only way I get any momentum to any of my tasks these days because our days are so busy. And so if I sit to think about this is what I want to do and now just go do it, I'm probably going to get distracted. So I start with the iteration here. Too much debt. Let's I need to make, and again, I would normally be talking some social posts on this topic.
I love what you just said, and so succinctly that the power is in the iteration, because that's also how, if people are using AI on a really basic level, then sometimes you can't see too much difference between that and just Googling something, right? But you can't iterate on Google. You get an output with a response, but this is where you go to start that iteration.
Yeah, so just as simple as like this. Listen, my consumer has this problem with too much debt. I need to make some social posts as content. Let's start with just reframing and turning them into these problem into some hooks. Okay. So again, I'm not looking for perfect outputs right here. I'm looking for me, the expert, to be inspired by one of these concepts that I can then further iterate into the post that I'm actually wanting. So
Hmm.
this process, the way I view AI is I'm not delegating and say, hey, here's my perfect prompt to go create this post for me. I'm thinking, here's my problem. I know it better than any freaking computer does. I know my consumer better than any freaking AI does. I know my market better than freaking anybody does. So why shouldn't I be using AI to add to my knowledge, not just to simply supplement it to the AI, right? So as example of this one, if I was doing a carousel post, swipe right on savings. That's kind of a great, if I was doing a social media, I kind of like that as a sort of like post. Hey, my consumer has this problem. They might want to understand savings. This is a cool, catchy little swipe right on savings. So maybe my first carousel post, I would like that. So now I might say something like, I like the idea of number two for a IG post. Continue um, with on some concepts.
This
There we go.
This is so, Eric, we've been saying that using AI this way is like having a team of experts that you have access to at any time. So just starting this iteration right here, it takes me back to all the times that as a brokerage owner, I'd bring my team in. We'd have a new project and we'd be wanting to focus on social media and figure out like who our audience is and how we want to connect with them. So we'd bring them into a boardroom and that's how the conversation would start. And then we'd go back and forth and back and forth. Well, here I have this ability to do the same thing, but I'm really collaborating with myself, yet I've got the wisdom of all these experts, right? From all the training data and all the information online, books, things like that. And I'm doing this at a fraction of the time it would take to call a meeting and to go back and forth and iterate with multiple different people.
Yeah. So again, I'm not using style. I'm not telling colors. I'm not giving branding like these I'm showing you the concept so you can go, oh, that spurred something for me. Yes, I can make that for myself and transfer. So point is that I'd go to answer your question, Danielle, it's iteration. I would start with the SparkPad in this case, get some my hooks and go, oh, that would be the image I want. I didn't plan when I sat down to create a social media carousel. But because that to me was the right idea to give this post on the way, yes, that's how I iterate to the truth instead of saying create a social media carousel of that. Right. So to me, that's how I use it.
Yeah, no, because that iteration is also sparking thoughts for you, right? And ideas and creativity in your own head. You didn't have to have that all determined when you sat down and give specific instructions. You actually just kind of started with your broad objective, or sometimes we start with like what it is that's holding us up or our pain point. Like, I need to work on my business plan for 2025, but I don't know where to start. Like, agents ask me all the time, like, how I start there. You start there because that's the very first problem you need to overcome, which is that I don't know what I'm doing. Help me with that piece first and foremost.
I don't open the chat very much, but I just happen to see the chat because it appeared here when I changed my screen size. And Breezy said, I wish we could store our brand boarded images where it would pull from like fonts and previously created image, like a cartoon version of Loan Officer, right? So that is actually the plan, Breezy. So the personas, as an example, if you can imagine your persona being a brand persona, and you're able to feed your brand persona, your brand book, your brand guidelines, your colors, your tone of voice or whatever, save it as your persona as one of your libraries. That's what's on the roadmap, just to be clear. So the first step of the persona is just, the prompt. We had to get it out there, connect it. That's how it works. Then you'll be able to connect documents, images, brand guides, and whatnot to your persona, save that to a library so you can use that over and over and over, just one use case. Okay. So that is what we're building, is the repeatable sort of things. And just to further, make sure that you guys really see the full vision here, these AI chats here in this version, right? You have multiple AIs on your screen, but now imagine, again, not to tease anybody, but to show you guys the vision of where we're at here, maybe this one you have trained specifically to do marketing, and this one is specifically to do copywriting. This one is specific, like you have specific AIs on a board that you've trained ahead of time that you can reuse over and over and over. Okay. So that's where these are going. And then step 2 is these will be able to talk to each other. So your copywriter, talk to your image generator, talk to your brand guideline expert, so on and so forth. Okay. So you chain those together and have them talk together. So that's a great comment. And if there's any other comments in the chats, please interrupt me, Danielle. Okay.
Yeah.
Where do you want to go from here, Danielle? What are the questions?
Well, this is kind of tying back to a talk we had a couple weeks ago and stuff when we were sharing the OODA loop and making decisions. But you say this consistently, that the real flex is the iteration speed, that's really it. So explain what you don't mean. I know this. It's not in producing content quickly. Right. So like, where does that benefit us in that we're able to iterate quickly? If it's not just being fast.
So I don't think the people that produce perfect content, it's the ones who learn faster than everyone else. So with AI, you can create 10 variations of captions, headlines, colors, fonts, calls to actions. And you can run A/B testing now. Like Instagram has a new feature, TikTok has features, YouTube has features, obviously in your website. So you can run A/B tests and see which ones performs better, like in just a couple of minutes, and then say, okay, I'll turn this one off and turn this one on. So it's that A/B sort of testing, or it's you being that hyper awareness, without tying your results to just likes and views and shares, meaning that you can't control the algorithm and the algorithm changes. So a mistake that some marketers do make is that they chase the algorithm, and the algorithm changes every single day nearly, but your customers' problems don't, right? So if you stay grounded in what the customer problems that you're trying to solve, you'll never have to be chasing anything, right? You'll have that scalable truth that goes throughout time that's not waxing and waning like the algorithms. Another thing about just a little tip that I learned personally, because again, I was posting a lot of content back in the day, having just a lot of interactions on social media. And if you're commoditizing a little portion of yourself and just putting that out and placing your value of how good am I, basing how well those ad copies are performing, it's a soul-sucking endeavor. It's just going to drive you. It's going to become a labor. So these things should be inspiring to you. And that's the energy that you come at your posts or your videos are going to come through the screen. So if it is a labor of love, that'll be felt. If it's a labor of your prison to doing social media marketing because you feel like you need to do it, it's going to come across that way too, no matter how good the copy is written by the AI. So I just can't stress that enough about the human part of this whole thing. And I think that social media is going to change dramatically this year with a lot of the social media posts being written by AI. A majority of all the comments are now AI bots, comments, AI bots talking to AI bots inside of the comments, right? So people are going to want a place to galvanize. And my vision of the future is that source is the most important thing. Because if we don't know what's real or not, then knowing where it's coming from is going to be what the most important thing is for the consumer. So knowing that it's you, that is your channel, will always reign supreme over a new channel. They can't really tell if it's a real person or not. They'll go to the source when they really want to know the truth. In order to be the source of truth, you have to have that value, not volume. Okay, so you see the whole theme over this coming to the end of that. I believe this to be the truth of what social media is going to turn into.
Mm-hmm. Well, so what I'm hearing is it's not just the speed of execution, which clearly we know we have with AI, but it's also the speed of adjustments, right? So that you're also iterating your processes and you're adjusting and you're keeping them relevant and intentional. You're not just creating a process to simplify. It always stays relevant. But the beautiful part that I just heard you say too is it's also about iterating as a individual and as a human as well too, and how we can utilize AI to continuously grow and grow fast in meaningful ways and in ways that impact our lives and those around us and our clients that we serve as well too. So we use that word all the time, iteration, and it's kind of in reference to our chat flow with our large language
Totally.
model. But there's also the iterating our processes, and there's also the iterating of ourselves as humans as well.
Yep. Yep. And on social media, learning faster than your competitor is the name of the game, right? And so you can do that with iteration and volume and speed. Yeah.
That's
Okay.
I'd love
awesome.
to
Oh,
I'd love
yeah,
to touch on this idea of iteration as well.
please.
Um, because you talk a lot about, or we talk a lot about how there's this huge sort of deluge of generated content, and there's not really a lot of value in just, creating more of it. When it comes to iteration, you have the starting place. You can start a lot faster because you're starting with sort of a baseline instead of starting from nothing. And then sort of as you iterate, you're also discovering more about what sort of separates you, because you have like, okay, why is this not me? Why does this not represent sort of my value add? And then the gap between that starting point and where you're trying to go is sort of where your value is. And then through that process, you're understanding like, okay, this is what really sets me apart. And then the next time you go back to that, even though you're not just generating something and sending it out there, that process is going to be faster. So you're still sort of automating in a way, but you're automating what makes your sort of voice unique in a way that's sort of faster and more repeatable. And even if you don't know exactly how to get sort of where you want to go, and you're not able to take something and say, word it exactly in this way. Once you're able to find your voice, let's say, and be like, I really didn't love what you came up with on your own AI model. This is sort of how I like to talk. Then you can say, what really makes this different from what you gave me? And now you're sort of building that idea of, who am I in the context of how I'm going to take what these models deliver and make it my own, because the model will continue to get smarter, but it's not going to get sort of more like you. So understanding what the difference is between what the models are doing and what you're doing is something that will sort of be faster and something you can sort of automate in a way, but it's not the same as just how can I create as many social media posts as possible.
Yeah, Josh, those are really good points. And I think to simplify it as well too, because that can on its face value feel somewhat complicated. Like, oh my gosh, I got to know how to talk to this computer, how to prompt it, what feedback to give and stuff. But I always say like it's just like you would to any team member. If I had an assistant or a team member that brought me back something and I'm like, this isn't quite it, I would give that feedback. I wouldn't throw my hands up in the air and say you're completely worthless. I would train. I would give the feedback and I would point out exactly what you're sharing here, which is this is close and this is what's missing, but I think we're disconnected on this one piece. You may have misunderstood what I said or what I was looking for, and this is the differentiating factor here and how we can connect better in the future. So just like working with our
And,
team members.
and on the product, remember that SparkPad has memory. The AI chats on Satori doesn't currently. So the SparkPad is remembering things about you and about your conversations because it's more like a personal assistant. Whereas on the Satori AI chats are more disposable, let's say, unless you train them and save them, right? So just to be clear, this SparkPad is learning and keeping things in its memory about the things you like and don't like. To go back to your question, you asked me that like, hey, if I only had an hour sort of thing. I didn't mean to poo-poo that, but it would just kind of hit me because it's like saying you only had an hour, to make sure that everybody in the world knows about or the most valuable people know about your business isn't enough time, right? So, but if you did just want to spend the hour on it, I would start, and if you want to write this down, please do. But if you don't have that content bank, or you can just refer to quickly to make content from, I would start with what's happening today in the world of fill in the blank here, real estate, movies, cars, food, whatever it is that you want to talk about, and have the AI go out and prompt the AI to go search for everything that's happening in the world of automobiles, cars, movies, whatever it happens to be. You start with that because what people are talking about now is kind of like an arbitrage for attention. So instead of just like coming at, remember, social media is a conversation and people's feeds have a general theme to them, right? So when they're scrolling, and if you're just out of left field, like nothing you're saying is like kind of in the mood of what they're experiencing, it's not going to make sense. It's not going to resonate. But if you have a way to like tie in something that's happening today in the world of, that can be content. If you don't have anything else that you can start with that. So then from that search, if you find one that's like, oh, they did a study on hamburgers and this is what it did, and you like that post, then you say, all right, now give me, five content ideas around this topic. Then you can turn that into a call to action, hooked and script from there, right? So just start with something happening is a suggestion, Danielle. Sorry, public.
That is a fantastic point and call out, Eric, what you just said there, because you do. It's like if you find somebody in your feed, I mean, how fantastic. They click your name and they go to your profile and they scroll through what they've seen. And if it's all over the place, then who are you? It's not entirely clear. So in business, we talk about branding. Branding is not your color codes and your logo. Branding is the experience that you provide to your clients and who you are and the value you provide. Okay, well, your feed may be your brand on display. Like, who are you? Do you have a niche? What do you talk about? What's your value? What are you really clued into in the industry and the business and the world and what's going on? Because if you're all over the place, what do they say? Like a mile wide and an inch deep, right? Is that and how valuable is that? So I'd never thought about that before, Eric, but this might be a really good check base for all of us, I guess, to go to our own feed and be like, what is there a clear theme here? Does this display who I am really?
Never before has the riches been in the niches in every industry. and that's been a saying that's been around a really long time. But since you mentioned broad, everybody's got really broad knowledge about everything, right? And or have access to really broad knowledge just as a prompt, generic prompter. So that deep knowledge, the deep expertise is the thing that resonates. And so don't be afraid to niche down even more than before. It's a scary thing to do sometimes. You're like, what are these other people I'm not talking to? But then you're talking to nobody. We know this intuitively, but really niching down is more important now than ever.
That has always been the concern, especially for people new in the business, is well, if I niche down, I cross all these people off the list, or they think, well, I can't help them. No, no. And when they have 1 million options, they're still going to be drawn to those who are an expert in something. They're going to be drawn to those that are an expert in something. So,
And I want to open this up, to comments and questions here directly, but I want to make sure that I kind of leave the theme with this. That, stop overthinking it, first of all. One clear post that speaks directly to your people is worth more than a month of sort of half-baked post, rush post, automated posts. Okay. So that clear post that's solving the problems or speaks to the problem in a digestible way that captures attention, uses that format we talked about earlier, those in those 3 styles, will outperform anything. So if you had the hour to spend instead of making it, like people on social media, like, I made a whole month's worth of content in an hour, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, yeah, and it sounds like it and looks like it. And it's just as forgettable as the amount of effort and energy you put into that, right? The bragging about how mediocre you are doesn't seem like something to brag about to me. So the thoughtful in making one clear post will crush it over the generic post, just spewing out content, right? As long as that's consistent and they can rely on it. So I think Breezy put something in the comment I just saw post out about. Yes, I'm not saying sporadically, but a consistent way. If you only have enough time to do an hour a week, then maybe that is just one post. You're not making 7 posts of content, in that 1 hour a week. Making one really good one that reflects your style, solve the problem, and be good with that.
And consistency for timing, yes, but maybe also consistency with our message and our value also, and find a balance with that. Like, yes, you need to be consistent in your posts and how you're communicating with your people, but also in the messaging. So once they land there,
And move them from your social media to somewhere else. Move them from the social media posts to your DMs, where you have an AI agent in your DMs that's helping generate leads and schedule showings and capturing information and encouraging the conversation. Move them to the comments. Move them to your email newsletter list. Move them to your blog, but move them from that to somewhere else. So you now deepen the relationship and move them further into the buying process with you in some way. Right?
love that. Todd's got a great question here, Eric. Can you tell me how you get from concepts, hooks, to the actual creative piece? So what platform are you using to create posts?
Generally, I will start with SparkPad to do an internet search, about the thing. Statistics move people, right? What is the stat? If you want to lie, use numbers, right?
Yeah.
It's not about twisting thing, but really statistics are very compelling in some way because it helps prove it. And please cite your sources. So I like to start with where the statistic is, and then it's not enough about giving the information. In today's world, you must give an opinion about the information to make it valuable, because everybody can find the information. The information is ubiquitous. But what is your opinion about that information? That's what makes it interesting or different or unique. And do not be afraid to be polarizing, right? Indifference will kill a small business. People being indifferent to your posts will kill your virality or your perceived value, because it's just bland. It's just whatever. It's just like, yeah, I got it. Okay, the prices went down by 10%. But what does that mean based on your experience, your opinion in a semi-polarizing way, without being rude or anything, but just state it over and over and over what that is. And that is what people are searching for. And I would rather have people know me and hate me than know me and be indifferent about me, right? Because they're either going to love me or hate me. And that's great. And now I'm sorting, not selling. And that is the name of the game here. So that's how I start with it. I start with a statistic. I break it down again, mapping to a problem. And then, I don't like honestly, I wish everyone didn't have goldfish memories and TikTok brains, right? I wish people could digest like long form content and be thoughtful, but that isn't exactly what the world is. And so you can't brute force your way against things, but you can find your own seams, right? And finding these seams are going to be done through iteration and what feels natural. So I don't I don't believe that social media is social anymore. Social media is now interest media. If you look at your feed, it's not social. It's not the people you're just connected to. It's your interests now. And so think about it that way. This is not social media. These are interest media posts. And so you need to make posts that are interesting about a specific interest for it to be seen and heard and recognized.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That was super helpful. Todd said he gets that. He was kind of wondering like what platform you use for the creative piece. And we use a few here at Huzi. Todd Breezy
Oh,
actually shared what she uses as well too. She uses Canva. She starts in Satori for the content creation and then brings it over to Canva. We actually have some great resources too with some built-in workflows on through the SparkPad, which can create some Midjourney and Canva prompting as well too. So we've got that baked in there, so you can get the most out of these other platforms. Now we have some image generation in Satori, so I know some are using that for certain posts, but of course, these other platforms are really valuable for content creation, and you can leverage Satori to get even more out of.
yeah. And this is the arms race, like the ChatGPT image generation tool that they released last couple of weeks is excellent. And then they're going to release the API, and we'll be able to use it too here inside of Satori Board as one of the options right here in the next 2 weeks. So it's like this arms race, things are going on, and you're going to find what fits you. I obviously try and use the tools I'm paying for first the most and leverage them the most before I go get distracted with anything else. But I have found that using my copywriting board at Satori is where I'm starting. And I have my research agent over there and my copywriting pieces. And I generally am starting there. Now the edit imaging features and generation, having a lot of fun with it. And we're going to start to see more of that too. So
Awesome. All right. Well, we are at 9:58, and I hope that we didn't miss too many questions in the chat. This was, I think, for me, it was super valuable just to pick your brain, Eric, and learn more about content creation, because that's the topic that we all want to learn more about, stay relevant, and get the most out of it, because it can also be a time suck. So if I'm dedicating so much time to this in my business, I want value out of it, and I want it to connect me to my clients as well too. So,
ooh,
and
I
and Pam loves this. Love that, Pam. We are so
do.
excited to have you on the call. We
Hi,
should
you guys.
connect,
Thank
girl.
you guys for spending your morning with me here. I did see a little shout out here to Gamma in the chats, and I do personally, I love Gamma. It's one of my favorite. I don't have any connection to Gamma, but I love Gamma to create presentations. The presentations I've actually been using for these weekly classes, I've been using Gamma. I create all that content inside Satori, and then I just copy and paste it, dump it into Gamma, and it produces it for me. The last two posts on our Instagram page, by the way, were posts I created the content inside Satori, copied and pasted to Gamma to make the images. So
Mhm.
it's a great combination, 1-2 combo for sure. Just really, really thank you. We're starting this big push, so please, tell people about Huzi if you love it, about the classes and about our tools. And we want to just grow this thing like crazy.
Yeah. And as always, of course, this is recorded for all of our members. And so you will find this in Learn in Huzi in the next 24 hours. And to Eric's point too, if you have talked to people and they want to learn about Huzi, we don't do these all that often, but we do have an open invite presentation that's coming up this Friday. So if you are interested in that and you want to share it, please connect with me and I will help you do so. So you can just email me, Danielle@huzi.ai, and I will get you all the information. But that will be this Friday. We have one next week as well too. So just let me know. Thank you guys so much. And we're excited to see you for our 8th session next Wednesday, same time, 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Thank you all.
Bye, you guys. Cheers.